I'm Thomas Fahy with the Center for the Divine Will in Tennessee, and I wanted to bring you up to date on the book that we printed back in September. Many of you have already purchased this book, Suddenly and Unexpectedly, Nonfiction, The End of Our Times. And I have some adjectives here. It's unprecedented, it's certain, imminent, and irreversible. So what's happened after we've gone to print? Well, we've had several printings since the first printing, but they weren't long printings. They weren't big printings, but there were several hundred involved each time. And I think we're now in a fifth or sixth printing at this moment. And the book has been very well received, far more than I really expected. So I want to bring you up to date, and I want, for the people who have not seen us talking about this before, I just want to tell you the background on this book and also about the book. The author, in this case it's me, has spent 42 years of research, discovery, and encounters as preparation for writing this book. I was inspired to write this book following a weeping that came upon me while considering the immensity of the price God will make human society pay for the enormity of its sins in our times. That happened in September of 2011. This book came into print the following year in September of 2012. And response has been greater than expected, as I said, and our center has had numerous favorable reports from readers, many of them commenting that the text is so easy to read, it makes everything so succinct and clear. The book has 182 pages and has been a godsend to many who have been alarmed at the disastrous moral decline of our country and society in general, and the re-election of our president. Not only does the book clarify what we can expect from divine justice, but describes the most glorious new era for the world for those who survive the time of the great trial, which is now close at hand. The present times are what's in the Bible and Scriptures. We are in the apocalyptic times now, and we've been in it for a while. We're in the time of the great apostasy. We're in the time of the great tribulation mentioned in Daniel, book of Daniel in the Old Testament, and also in St. Matthew's Gospel. And we're also facing in the future, probably not so far down the road, of a great chastisement of fire from heaven. And we're also, as Pope John Paul II said shortly before he became Pope, we're now undergoing the last great battle. Now here's the chapter titles for those who are not familiar with the book. The first chapter is called The Nights of the Screams. Horrifying, prolonged, and anguished screams on the two nights of screams in a tiny Spanish village back in 1962. What was seen and heard is soon to become a terrifying reality in the whole world, especially in Europe. The second chapter is titled The Awesome. It's an account of the marvelous and beautiful things that happened in that tiny Spanish village the year prior to the nights of the screams. And the third chapter is titled Christian Era Prophecy, a description of how God gives us prophecy of serious pending events differently in the Christian era than he did in the Old Testament. In the fourth chapter, the title of it is The Awful. It gives the details of the now imminent great tribulation that will come upon the whole world and was seen in advance on the first night of the screams in 1962. And chapter 5 is titled The Warning. This chapter relates how the great tribulation that comes from man will reach its extreme, at which point divine mercy intervenes directly from heaven to stop the agony on earth and corrects the conscience of the world. In chapter 6, the title of it is The Great Miracle. The great miracle will be the greatest public miracle worked by God since the creation of the world, during which those present at the site of the extraordinary event will see the glory of God, and they will not die. It has already been seen in advance by two very holy priests, and at least one of those saw the miracle and died of joy shortly after. In chapter 7 is titled The Chastisement. The chastisement of fire from heaven will come upon the whole human race at some point after the great miracle, because after a certain period of peace, people will begin to retrogress toward their former evil behavior. Some extremely horrifying details of this chastisement are described in this chapter based upon what was seen in the second Night of the Screams back in 1962. Now note that chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7 contain numerous interviews with those who were involved in the two Nights of Screams in 1962. Chapter 8 is titled, When Will These Things Happen? The Foretellings. This chapter provides information that has already been publicly and privately disclosed that allows the reader to come to a factually based understanding of the approximate times of the coming events that will bring a definitive end to our present times. In chapter 9, this chapter tells of something very important that happened at Fatima and is almost entirely unknown, and how it directly relates to the continuation of Our Lady of Fatima's mission 44 years later after the miracle of Fatima. And then it goes into statements and known beliefs of St. Padre Pio, St. Maria Maravillas, Blessed Mother Teresa of Calcutta, Venerable Mother Esperanza, Pope Paul VI, Blessed Pope John Paul II, Pope Benedict XVI, the former Bishop of Fatima, Bishop Venanzio, Father Luis Andreo, Father Walter Chizik, Father Malachi Martin, Stigmatus Antonio Ruffini, and Mr. Joey Lamangino. Now, chapter 10 takes a different tack. It's about the renewal of the face of the earth and the happy times to come. It speaks about a certain period of peace that comes after the annihilation of many nations and the conversion of Russia, and that after the later chastisement that will come later than that, the chastisement from heaven, there will come a long and glorious period of happiness and peace in which the Father's will be done on earth and lived on earth as in heaven. And then the last chapter is chapter 11, the three eras of the world and the three renovations of the world. The first renovation took place with water, the flood of Noah's time. The second renovation took place with the blood of our Lord Jesus Christ. And then the third renovation is now in progress, and it cannot be stopped. And it will culminate with the fire from heaven to completely purify the world, to make it a proper place for the time of the Father's kingdom, reigning in souls on earth as in heaven. Then at the end, there's an appendix. It's a fairly long appendix, and it has very interesting things. It has excerpts from the locutions of Father Stefano Gobi, in which Our Lady explains her tears and her weepings in these times. And it has important extracts from an interview, the appendix does. It has an important extracts from an interview in 1957 with Lucia of Fatima by Father Augustin Fuentes. And also it ends with a monograph by Father Jim Anderson about the third secret of Fatima, released by the Vatican in the year 2000. And one more item, it has a vision. It talks about the vision of Pope Pius IX in 1878, and some words about the Catholic Church in these times. So with that brief description of the book, which these are only the minor little points in the entire book, but when you get the entire book, then you'll read it all. They say it's very easy to read, both by the print. The print is easy to read, and the text is very easy to read from what people tell us. And they liked the fact that it gets right to the point, it's succinct, and they know exactly what they're reading in a sequence of events. So if you haven't yet obtained this book, you can obtain it from the Center for the Divine Will. It's called Suddenly and Unexpectedly. And the phone number to call is 423-566-5178. And you can buy the book over the phone, or you can even go to our website called comingofthekingdom.com. And you can also do it under .org, either way. And you look under the store and under miscellaneous items, and it'll be listed under the miscellaneous items as the book called Suddenly and Unexpectedly. And that website is comingofthekingdom.com. God bless you. I'm Thomas Fahy.